Welcome to the Nexus Unloaded podcast. This is Will Crozier.
And I'm Zach Congonis. We are here to bring you the best solutions to your lifting problems. Through our real-world experience, we hope to break things down in a digestible, applicable, and entertaining way.
I'll kick things off, say this might be the last episode of the podcast ever. Bombshell. No, we won't do that to the people. We won't do that to the people, but I'm at that edge because this... we just had a HDMI cable that decided to die and then into the camera. It's delayed this recording, and then the sound also decided not to connect to the computer, so I had to restart it like 5 times. So a lot of effort goes into this. So everybody should appreciate. I feel like nobody appreciate. I feel like everyone should appreciate it. My frustration at this technology.
Zach, please tell me that you can hear us.
Yeah, I can hear you. You clipped out for like a solid 40 seconds, but you're back now.
Okay, well, we're going to continue and carry on.
And if you're watching on YouTube, the screen's a little bit small. Don't care. Don't care.
We don't take criticism on this podcast.
So look, I feel like the biggest thing that we can start off with is just saying, "Hey, Will, HDM, you mad, bro?" That's the first thing.
Very mad.
The second thing, we can say that this podcast is officially brought to you by HDMI cords and Jetstar, our two favorite things.
God.
Yeah, we did have a competition here on the weekend.
Our two.
Yeah,
Competition went great.
The comp went
Travel
great.
to and from.
Yeah,
went
we had
horribly.
the weekend. We had the novice comp at Valhalla, Brisbane on Saturday, and then the GPC comp also at Valhalla on the Sunday. Both massive days, hot days. Happened to pick the hottest days. Had a lot of gym members compete at the novice comp, so a lot of them, it was their first time. Don't think there was a single person that had a real bad day at all. Obviously, a couple of missed lifts here and there, but that's what happens at comps. That's what you're doing. You're pushing yourself. But for the most part, everyone killed it. Everyone got PBs across the board. And then on the Sunday, we had people fly in from all over the place, down in Tassie and down in Melbourne, and all around the joint, including yourself. So you came up to handle and help out on all fronts. And yeah, from what I've heard, enjoyed a really easy, relaxing, smooth flight.
Yes.
Well, if I just so first off, we'll start off with, if you're flying, fly early in the morning. Don't fly at night. If you fly at night, they're gonna fuck you. That's the first thing.
Yeah.
Second thing, how can Jetstar know to cancel a flight at 9 p.m. at 8 a.m.? How does that even work? Like, oh yeah, fuck these guys. Yeah, it's fucked. The plans are fucked. Cancel them all. Cancel them all today and tomorrow. It's game over. Write them off. So pretty much my experience was a cancelled flight first off. Then I had to pay $600 for a Qantas flight.
I was about to say,
and I swear to God, those two, they're in fucking cahoots.
Qantas have the best deal ever. They just sit there and just bank on everybody else being terrible. That's
they're like, we're going to put these prices 3 times as high because Jetstar fucking sucks. Then the Qantas flight got delayed 3 hours, and then I swear to God, I'm a nervous flyer. I don't like being fucking in the sky in some metal death bird. It's not my favorite thing. It was possibly the roughest aeroplane ride I've ever been on. It was like Godzilla grabbed and fucked the plane the entire time. And you know when you're trying to gauge how stressed you should be off the flight attendants?
Yeah.
Do you ever do that?
Yeah, I mean,
like if it's bumpy, you look at the flight attendant.
I don't know. I don't feel like they fly like all day every day. So I mean, they're not usually if they're fucking screaming and running in circles, something's real wrong for sure.
You're panicked. So you know how there's like 3 main types of flight attendants, and you have the jaded old man who looks like he's been doing that job for about 40 years. Like, I think his name was Steve. So jaded old man Steve looks like he was the fucking sea captain. You know what I mean? Like, you get the old dude flight attendant who's been doing it for years. They never stood up the whole flight. Yeah. The whole flight, the seatbelt thing was fucking on, and they were all sitting down. And I'm there like, why is Steve sweating? If Steve's sweating,
snacks,
should I be sweating?
Snacks?
And the plane's just fucking... No, it was too bumpy.
What?
The turbulence was so bad that they didn't do in-flight service.
I thought that's what that extra $300 was for that little snack that you get that's just terrible and you don't actually want to eat it.
Apparently, it was for Top Gear on the little screens at the top.
Nice. Oh, nice. Yeah.
We had that. Top Gear and patchy Wi-Fi, but
cool.
I have never been so stressed on a flight. My hands were sweating. I kept dropping my phone. My heart was in my asshole, and that was about it. It was a great weekend.
Delightful. I actually have a question for you. Something I've wanted to bring up. Because for anyone that's actually listened to the earlier stages of this podcast, if not, go back, listen
Start
over.
again.
Start again. You had a little lamb that...
Haven't seen it.
I thought we'd get a lamb update and just figure out what's been going on with your little lamb. Do you not go to that park anymore? You scared after the lamb bit you?
I still do, but Stavros for lamb has not come back.
Stavros.
Yeah, it's his name.
Okay.
May not be his birth name, but that's the ethnic name which I have given him.
Well.
Yeah, Stavros either turned into a roast or...
He's gone out to the farm.
Yeah,
the
so
cops
no
got
lamb.
him. Have you seen the owners?
Upsetting.
Like, do you know how like you recognise what the owners look like or whatever?
Yeah, the owners have not been there. Don't know why. Maybe they got sent to the farm as well.
They're slightly more around. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there we go. If you do see your little lamb again, please let us know.
I'll let you know if Stavros shows up.
I just throw that one in there because I was thinking about it the other day as we were driving back, and I was like, I haven't heard about this little lamb for a while. So
I definitely would have brought it up. There's no world in which I wouldn't.
It'll grow pretty quick, so it'd be a sheep.
I mean, I was also considering getting a pet crawdad.
God.
Yeah, you can.
I could put a fucking little in a crate. Out the back there. Not a crate. It was the fucking
in the crate.
I feel like
you'll be right. You don't need water on that shit, yeah?
I feel like your crawdad would probably outgrow Jack.
Maybe.
Nah, Jack's a big boy. He's a thick boy. Got big old nutsies.
Let's
Little Tank here is joining us once again in the podcast room, but he is laying beside me today.
He's hiding this time. He's not
hiding.
in vision. We have
not front and center.
Pro Raw coming up in 18 weeks, which, as we've talked about a few times, 18 weeks? Yeah, somewhere, I don't know, around that, give or take a week.
I think it's 18.
And then, so, getting into where I have to start actually, like, calling it a prep and doing more squatting, benching, and deadlifting than what I'm currently doing, which is only like 4 sets of each a week. So, really going hard on it. But one thing I have mentioned a couple of times is that for the last, like, I don't know, 7-ish weeks, the last couple of weeks, kind of been written off for a few reasons, but still sticking to it for the most part. Just I've been dieting, so I went from 116 at the start of it, like when I decided, like, okay, I should probably do this, and then knowing Pro Raw was a 2-hour weigh-in. I want to compete at 110. I want to give myself room to move. I don't want to cut weight. I don't want to be stressing about my being over the weight class or anything too much at 6 weeks out or less. Knowing all those things, I said, okay, let's plan ahead a little bit here and start losing weight, starting getting closer to the weight class.
Wait, so you're telling me you didn't just leave it till 2 days before and then aggressively text whoever's handling your nutrition to fix it?
No, that's the typical approach for sure. But actually planning, because like my prep's already going to be rough enough because I haven't prepped in a long time. So like my just
States 2021.
Just the mental game of prep and dealing with how my body is going to accept it is probably going to be enough work, let alone worrying about my body weight and everything at the same time. But between that and a couple of listeners hitting us up, we decided to do today's episode on dieting and gaining strength in general. As a whole. So I guess like a lot of questions come out of that. Like I have people all the time like, oh, can I lose weight and also like get stronger? Is that a thing? And similar questions along that line. And so I thought, let's do a podcast episode on that and just cover around about everything involved. Because you certainly can. You certainly can. I went through my Pro Raw pre-COVID. I don't know the number. I went through that prep, dieting most of the way, which is why another reason why, which is why with this one I was like, fuck that, because that was terrible. But yeah, I was a bit bigger then and everything, so not near as hard this time, but I competed 110 at that point, and I dieted with Dean McKillop, my coach, my nutrition coach at the time, nearly all the way through that prep, with just little strategies in place along the way to keep performance high and to keep it so I could recover and keep it so I could do enough work that I could effectively peak my strength and just win that competition. So, this one will hopefully go a little bit easier on the front, but it certainly can be done. Have you ever had to diet into a comp, or ever had to diet whilst trying to keep strength, or have you always kind of like, oh, I better diet now, and then just changed goals?
For me, being the chronic slender boy, losing weight has never been anything that was difficult.
Nah, for me, that's not
like pretty much for every comp. It's just trying to get a little bit bigger and trying to have weight not fall off me. So I feel like dieting into a comp would not be very difficult, because 25 weeks out, I could diet for 3 weeks and lose 4 kilos, and then we're there.
Don't get me wrong, I'm the same. Like, if I stop eating or paying attention to it, it just falls off me. Gaining weight is by far the harder part of the whole process for me. But obviously you don't want to lose weight on purpose if you're already within the weight class and everything, and you want to optimize performance and be as strong as you can. It's just something you want to actively avoid. You know, if you want to be putting on muscle and optimizing recovery, you got to do that.
And I mean, for me as well, I never really gave a fuck about what weight class I ended up in. It never quite bothered me. Like, I've competed at hundreds, 110s, and 125s, and very rarely been at like the top or bottom of those classes. Like, when I first started competing, I did one water cut from 107 to 96, and I think I've regaled everyone with that story on a different episode, and then pretty much did every other comp between 110 and like 120, and just kind of fucking let whatever happened.
Just go along for the ride.
It never bothered me.
Yeah, I kind of I can't do that, because like nutrition really, obviously I know how important nutrition is, and so do you. We've talked about it a lot on this podcast already. But before I did powerlifting, I competed in bodybuilding, where nutrition was like number one, and you had to be like pretty damn strict, overly strict during certain portions of it. And so I really saw, because when you're really low body fat, like the little tiny shit matters so much. Like, you'll be like, you know, you time your meals a little bit wrong, and it'll absolutely belt you as far as your performance in the gym. Whereas like for us, if I'm like, I skipped a meal, but I can still do my session today, no worries, because like I'm not at a body fat that really that's a problem.
Your body's not on the brink of death.
exactly. Yeah, like those little things matter so much more in bodybuilding. So I guess it's just in my mind, like always kind of like half thinking about it a little bit, and especially when I did my first few years of powerlifting, it was still really right there, and I was super strict with everything. Way more relaxed these days, but still, it's still like I know how much of an impact it can have, so it's still a massive priority for me. So, if you don't have any kind of experience with it, I'll talk about my plan into it, and then in my plan, like how I've handled this one and how I've handled the other one, and then some strategies around what people can do and implement to make this whole like losing weight and or like getting leaner, recomping type strategy, whilst also coming into a competition and or like just getting stronger generally, if that's your goal. So for this one, to highlight the difference between the two, like I said, this one I've taken a much earlier, like planned out approach and gone like, okay, let's get like really close to the weight class really early. So I'm pretty much there now. I'm at like 110 point, maybe 111 something every in the mornings, empty. So I could pretty much like compete in a couple of weeks' time and very comfortably make the weight class. I've just got to make sure that I maintain it and keep performance up for the rest of this prep. So this is a much, much better position to be in. And since I had what I could have done like 6 weeks ago is just gone like, let's just go real slow and just like really like slowly lose the whole time. And that's usually the default advice if you don't know the situation very well with somebody, is like, look, just go think, longer longer, slower, and just, gradually go to it. But if you really know the person, which I do, I know myself really well, and I know how I respond to things, and I know the performance hits that I take from dieting and everything, and I know my mental kind of approach to food, well, you can really aggressively go about fat loss, and that's the route that I took this time. So from, like I said, 7 or so weeks ago through to about 2 weeks ago, we were going pretty hard on it and actively losing between half kilo and a kilo a week, and just, you can go way harder than that, by the way. You can really like go down to almost eating nothing and just have like protein and vegetables, and you'll be surprisingly fine. You won't lose muscle if you do it right.
Surprisingly fine. Besides the severe depression.
You'll absolutely hate
extreme
it.
sadness.
Like your life won't be very fun. Like your mental game won't be. But like I said, that's why I wouldn't do that to somebody who came on and goes like, yeah, just, never competed before, and I'm just like, bang, 1,000 calories for you. Like I would never do that to anybody, unless they had extensive history with dieting, unless they really knew themselves, if they were in a really mentally good place with dieting and knew how to like aggressively diet and then come back to normal without, binging and going crazy and all that stuff. So like, knowing myself, I know I can cut really hard for a short period of time. I prefer to do it that way because for me, it feels like I'm doing something. Like I can see the changes week to week on the scales, in the mirror, on the measurements, whatever I'm doing. So I just prefer to go like, all right, bang, let's just do this. Let's get it off ASAP and attack it that way. It almost makes me feel like I have like another goal. Like it's just way more successful. Whereas if I go slow, I'm kind of like, get over it. You're kind of like, oh, look.
So give us a timeline then. Would you say like 4 to 6 weeks you go really hard aggressively and then that's
I would ever only go personally like for, it depends. Like I said, you can go to like nothing and eat just like protein and veg.
No, I mean length of time, 4 to 6 weeks. Like, is that?
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Is that like the harder you go, the shorter you can take it, because you'll start to really like up the ante in terms of like you have more risk of muscle loss the longer that you go, more risk of like the mental side of it just becoming an issue. So like if you're going really hard, like 4 weeks at a time. Like I wouldn't put anybody through a severe deficit for longer than that, because it would just
fucks with them.
Not a fun time.
Yeah.
And then if it's a moderate one, like kind of like what I've done, to a degree, it's 6 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks is completely fine. And then if we want to take the longer, slower approach, like I said, and just lose a couple 100 grams a week or whatever, and just essentially just cruise along that way. It's not hard mentally. It's not that hard physically. Most people can do that for an extensive period of time and be completely fine with it. So that's what I had to do in the other prep. In the other prep, where I had a lot kind of further to go and a longer prep, we just kind of cruised in the whole time and just gradually chipping away. And then when we had bigger weeks come up, or when I started to feel a little bit tired, or when, like the fatigue indicators were coming up, we'd just have like a week or two off, back at maintenance calories. We'd been working together long enough, me and Dean, that we knew kind of where those landmarks were, and bump things up and then continue on our merry way. So
it really depends on the phase that you're in as well, right? Like obviously the position that you're in now, so many months away from competition, you're taking that aggressive approach now to set yourself up for the competition timeline. We talked about this with Broderick whilst he was here, while we were out at dinner. Like I go through, because people are like, oh, recomp phase, or, and saying how he hates all those different terminologies to essentially explain like dieting, maintenance, surplus. And a lot of people use the terminology of like recomp from getting out of dieting into maintenance, whereas
like a reverse, you mean?
Yeah, reverse. Sorry, he hates that word, reverse. Whereas I use it like pivoting blocks. So like I'll say that, for some people going, as you were doing, like 1,000 calories deficit sort of thing, like really hard and aggressively, some people can't take that jump initially but want to get into that position. So I do like a pivoting block where we'll spend 1 to 2 weeks with a 500 calorie drop and then do another 500 calorie drop like 1 to 2 weeks later, just so they're not like instantly feeling that hunger from day one.
Yeah, it depends. It depends again on the mental, like
that's
how
the
experienced you are.
Factor.
Yeah. You're just dealing with people's mental.
So pivoting from one.
It's not doing anything like on a physiological level. Like it doesn't really matter, but it's more like to stop the person from just either, like you said, Zach, like hating your life or just going binge mode,
just having an awful time.
Or whatever. Like something mental coming out of that for sure.
I mean, for me, I was always under the impression that the extended duration, smaller deficits provided an easier platform to not lose tissue from.
Well,
I'd be curious to hear the strategies for maintaining, like you said that, say, if you fucking protein and veg someone, like you had like essentially like the perfect robot human, follows everything you said, say, cool man, meat and veg for 2 weeks. How are you maintaining muscle mass at that level of a deficit?
It's only 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's only a short time period. If you have your protein high enough and you're getting your micronutrients and everything in, like the bare bones of everything else, you'll be surprised your body can get away. How much muscle mass
can you really lose in 2 weeks? You know, you're not going to be dropping 3 kilos of muscle mass in 2 weeks.
Yeah, you absolutely can do it. If somebody wants a resource on it, it's quite old now, but yeah, Lyle McDonald's protein sparing modified fast. I think the book's actually called like Rapid Fat Loss Protocol. But anyway, something along those lines. It's not exactly like you don't have to follow that exact protocol, but like it gives you a good insight into like how heavily you can go into it.
I have seen one person successfully do that, and Ollie is batshit crazy. Anyways, he just throws himself out there as a guinea pig, and this is Ollie Pert, and he just throws himself out there as a guinea pig and tries all different sort of strategies. But he's done it.
Self-science. Good on you, Ollie.
Self-science. He'll go like 6,000 down to like 1,400.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
But surely during that period, you're training absolutely toilets.
Yeah, well, it's only a short time, so you kind of survive for the first week or 2 weeks, and then it's not great. But I think we've talked about it a little bit on here before, but like the amount of training, just total dose of training that you need to do to get stronger or to get bigger is quite a lot. Like you need to give a stimulus to the body, and it's hard, especially once you get to like past an intermediate level and you have a bit of muscle in your body and you're at a decent level of strength. It's pretty hard to push the body because the body's just like, actually, I don't need to get stronger and bigger. So like, fuck you. And you have to really like push it a bit.
It's always trying to find homeostasis.
Yeah. Whereas if you're just trying to maintain, it's actually ridiculously easy. So you can get away with bare minimums. But yeah, essentially like what you're saying, Zach, is kind of like, I'm obviously not going down the full extreme of that route, but like I lost weight pretty quick.
Veg.
Got down to my weight class pretty quick, and now I've got 18 weeks essentially to just tinker with my weight. Like I'm already there. Like I said, I can compete in 2 weeks. So like from here, it's pretty much maintenance calories, a little bit higher when I need them to be for recovery for the bigger weeks and things like that. And then if I need to, like scattering in some low weeks to bring it back down and just staying on top of the scales and just making sure that they're not getting too out of hand, you know? Like, even for that, the pro where I said I dieted for a long period, we still did a small cut at the end. And I think I lost like a kilo and a half, something like that.
The week, I remember this because it was the week of hell for me dealing with you. Will had a whole week of low res, and this is not something that we would I don't encourage it. I don't condone this sort of thing, but obviously
you have to save this. Don't go into detail because they save this for like a weight cutting episode or something. Because like it's just
yes, but it was a low residue approach from 6 days out.
Yeah.
With water loading protocols.
Yeah.
And you were 113 6 days out, so you had 3 kilos to lose.
Yeah.
And then the night before. You were, which 3 kilos at 110 kilos body weight, that's, you can do that. But with a 2 hour weigh,
and I had a DEXA scan, I think.
Yeah, but he already would have been pretty lean.
He had a DEXA scan a couple of days before.
It's not like he was sitting at like 15% body fat.
Yeah, I was 7% or something on a DEXA scan, which they're not always accurate. I doubt I was actually 7%, but like it gives you an idea, like pretty lean. So not a lot to come off.
But still.
And then, so the night before, I remember because Dean was obviously staying with us, so the luxury of having... he was laughing at me. He's like, is this what you've been dealing with all week? I'm like, yes, motherfucker, you got it for 24 hours. The night before, I remember you were already like you were 110.4 or something like that. So you had like a little bit of chocolate and some water and then basically went to bed. And then the next day weighed in, I don't recall exactly what you weighed in at, but you were under 110 by that point. So it's definitely a little bit more of an extreme process, but those are the steps that obviously we went through on a 2-hour weigh-in, which is different. So
yeah. And then to talk about that prep, when you're on lower food, like we were saying before, Zach, especially if you're at a lowish body fat and you're on lower food, like all the lower than low you go, the more the details matter. Like things like fiber and how much macros you're getting and the timing of food around training for like performance and things like that. They all start to matter. Whereas if you're just an average person who's wants to look a little bit better in the mirror and you're trying to go from like 15% down to 12% or something like that, it's not that hard of a process. Like you don't have to like zoom in on those details because it's just like, yeah, drop a couple of calories, be consistent, you'll be right type thing. Like chances are it's not going to matter. But all those little details really become important. So like like for me, before Mickey jumps into a little bit more detail, but for me, like the obvious one, besides getting your calories right, is just getting the macro split. So like you can handle a lot lower fat than you think. Zach can't because he drinks oil, but most people
doesn't count. Doesn't count. It's calorie neutral. Olive oil. It's good for you.
Yeah, it's good fats, right? It doesn't count. But yeah, like you can get away with a lot lower fat than what you realize.
I think we had you down like 55, 60 grams of fat.
Yeah, 50, 60 is plenty.
Yeah.
What were you cooking your food in? Tears?
Yeah. No, you can just there's things like air fryers and that now.
Yeah, air fryer, slow cooker with just chicken breast.
Yeah. There's ways. It doesn't make for the most delicious food, that's for sure. I'm not saying you're going to be living in luxury, just loving your food, but it doesn't also have to be that bad. That's for sure. Low fats.
Shallow fry your chicken breasts in depression.
It's not just chicken breasts. You can. There's a lot more to it than
fish and rice cakes.
Yeah, it's not as bad as what you think.
I have a fish and rice cake.
Will's a very basic eater at the best of times, anyways. Like
I've eaten the same diet for like the last, I think, 2-3 months.
When Will and I first got together, like the first 6 years of our relationship, he was literally eating mince and rice with frozen vegetables and taco. I think you jazzed it up with a little bit with some taco seasoning.
Oh yeah, you gotta have seasoning on it.
Yeah, a little bit of taco seasoning, but it was literally plain mince that he'd throw in the pan with rice and tomato sauce and vegetables, frozen vegetables.
Jesus
That's
Christ.
what Will ate for literally the first 6 years.
This is what I mean. I know my mental state with it. I know my approach, and then I can just.
He's a robot.
I just do it.
You're rather atypical.
Yeah, most people would obviously want a bit more variety, and to those people, I would say, have a bit more variety, and then if you need to, this is like you can strict up for the times you need to lose weight, or
there's sacrifices that need to be made.
Sacrifices that come with prep anyway. Hopefully you're sacrificing a little bit of social stuff, and you're not going out and just partying every weekend of your prep. Hopefully, like you are taking your sleep a little bit more seriously. You are, your training becomes priority over some other stuff in your life. So like, there's already sacrifices in there. So it's just one more sacrifice if you want to be at the top. You're going to have to dial things in more and more. But
what were some of the sacrifices that you had, Zach? Any sacrifices that you can think of?
For what?
Preps.
For preps. I mean, not really. I don't really do much.
You sacrifice. Yeah, exactly. There's a social sacrifice to it.
No, I don't do social stuff anyway. I have a great time. Like you just sit at home and work.
Whatever.
Plot.
That's about it.
But.
Just exist.
So was there anything else on that?
Other minutiae of things that we need to...
It's more like the timing and just making sure you're getting enough good stuff in general.
You mentioned meal timing, macro splits, that sort of stuff.
Having higher carb to fat ratio.
Higher carb to fat ratio. Another thing that I like to look at is just an electrolyte balance. So I do monitor in those generally I say the last 4 weeks because it's really the only time that people will actually be compliant in those last 4 weeks because...
This is the hard thing though, because like in those last weeks, like to have that level of attention, you pretty much are restricted to eating the same shit.
Yes, and it's the only
you're not talking about adding salt to meals, you're adding like the sodium content of and potassium content of foods.
Yeah, so I look at the sodium potassium ratios. I ensure that we're at least at a 1-to-1 ratio because most people don't give a fuck outside of those last few weeks. So all that is that's going to allow us to ensure that we've got a little bit of a stockpile there in those last few weeks coming into comp and on comp day itself, particularly if people are having to do some kind of water manipulation or something like that. We want to make sure that we've still got a little bit of that sort of stuff coming in. And then obviously in those last 4 weeks as well, as you mentioned, like fatigue and everything like that's quite high. Having a good ratio of different minerals coming through to prevent illness, getting
which you
sick.
could supplement stuff.
Yeah, of course there's supplements, but those are all the smaller sorts of things that we start to look at. But the biggest thing that I generally do is that electrolyte stockpile, the vitamin and minerals, the types that people are getting in.
For me, in some of those previous stress, like the timing was pretty important when I was on low food. So and
it probably even more important now with the beaties.
Nah, not really.
The diabetes. the beatus.
Nah, the calories are high enough.
Did you just call it the beaties?
Yeah. He has beady beans. I call them downstairs as jelly beans. They're as beady beans. So you got to make it a little bit of fun.
Then, yes, completely just going routes here.
Yeah.
But yeah, fueling for performance. So for me, like when I was on like lower calories, like having the bulk of my food,
carbs,
really, just in general, like either side of training. I know. So I personally. Different strategies for different people, but I would fast up until like midday at some days, which might sound horrible to some people, but to me, it's like not hard.
The background that you have in bodybuilding,
I got used to it over years.
You can deal with hunger. I think that's one of the biggest pros that you can come into comp preps with is that you can, though you don't handle it well in terms of getting a little bit grumpy, but you can live with the hunger, you know what I mean? Like you can deal with being hungry, whereas some people, like, they get hungry and they're just like, they lash out, you know what I mean?
You get used to it. Like, you just find strategies for work for yourself. Like, for me, like, fasting sounds for half the day, I don't know, but have you ever done something like that, Zach?
Oh, so, I find it very easy.
For me,
like, not having first meal till like 12 or 1 o'clock.
Just getting distracted more. you know, like I do it sometimes, just not even like...
You're watching like horseshoes being made on YouTube. It's like, oh, fuck, it's 12 o'clock.
Exactly. You know, important things. But so strategies like that could help me, and then I would have a bigger meal before training, and then a bigger meal after training, and then
during training you'd also have a little bit around. As well.
Yeah.
Like that's when you're going down your peckish route.
Yeah, stuff like that. Yeah, so there's lots of ways. Like, this is the nutrition side of things. So let's go back to the training side, because this is meant to be, you know, how the dieting as well as gaining strength. We've talked in previous episodes about like how strength, especially peak strength, but like just strength in general, is very up and down. So the weight that I can go and put on the squat bar today and do for a certain amount of reps at a certain amount of RPE depends on lots of different factors. And on comp day, if you've done it right, all the factors will be in your favor and you'll be able to do your biggest weight. That's the whole kind of idea behind a prep. But it is multifactorial. Like, all these fatigue and recovery issues come into what we can move on that. And the food, the deficit, both deficit over time and food on the day, are just other factors that come into it. So, like, the better you get it and the more like zoomed in and better your nutrients are around training and all this, it's going to come into the plan. So we've talked about fatigue indicators and just recoverability in general and all that stuff on previous episodes. But and just recently the over 50s episode. So, like, mentioned a lot in that just kind of like have to be a little bit slower, drag things out, be a little bit more patient when adjusting things, tinkering a little bit, like smaller little things, and it's just another thing that would kind of make you do that. So almost, if you want to go back and listen to that, when you're dieting, it's the same thing. Like, you want to err on the safe side with things, with adjustments if you're a coach and if you're a lifter. Like, if a weight's feeling a little bit heavy, it's probably best to pull it back and adjust things and take it slower from that route. So it's your acute strength. The strength that you can do on a day-to-day basis might be might be down in certain circumstances, but you can still definitely gain it if you're smart about it and manage your fatigue well. You just won't be able to push quite as hard as if you were eating a lot more food, which allowed for more recovery, which allowed for you to do more work and allowed for you to get stronger over the long term.
It just decreases the amount of leeway that you could have in any given circumstance. If you normally have a range of X to Y of what's going to be acceptable or what you're going to be able to push, that range might just shrink a bit. So you're just going to have to be a lot more considerate over those day-to-day feelings. Like, if you're well-fed and you've had a shit night's sleep, you can probably, grab your nuts and push on through. But if you pile a couple of extra things, okay, you're in a deficit, okay, now you've had a shit night's sleep, okay, your cat's pissed on your favorite gym shoes, whatever you're doing, it's just decreasing the you can talk to Alex about that. Bicky's pissed in his shoes, but it just decreases the available pool that you have to draw from. So you have to be a bit more acute over the extra things you're piling on top, or that might just happen.
Yeah, you do. Just have to pay a little bit more attention. As a lifter, I expect them to, it's very easy as a lifter. Like, we're drilled in as this is a tangent on the more of the mental side, but as powerlifters, we kind of get drilled in that, all the memes, like, you got to be really tough, and it's a war zone out there, guys.
Powerlifting's the least tough sport ever. Everyone's like lifting bars in air conditioned rooms in their favorite spot in the gym.
I don't know. I feel like you're underselling me. But it's everyone wants to be tough, and then sometimes when I get people, they feel like they need to be tough to me, and then just not. They'll be like, "Nah, I'm sweet, coach. Like, just put the weight up. Put the weight up. Give me more sets. I'm ready. And they're like dying. And then all of a sudden we're so far in that hole that they're just like coming to me one week and they're like, everything hurts and I can't lift the bar, So.
And then as a coach, you're sitting there like, oh, wow, shit was going great for like these 3 weeks. And then what, you've fallen off some magic cliff when they've just been steadily declining but not telling you?
Yeah. That's why when we talked about fatigue indicators, like the subjective as well as the objective measures should make your decision. It shouldn't be just objective, for that reason. People are too stubborn for their own good. But, a mix of the two should be how you draw somebody's recovery from. But... yeah, if you're a person, you're going through a dieting phase, again, you have to just be a little bit more careful. Be completely honest with your coach or with yourself if you're self-programming when it comes to the fatigue and pull back when you need to pull back and just be a little bit more careful with that approach because you can very quickly find yourself way too far gone and then trying to climb out of a ditch at 3 weeks out where it's just like,
then once you're in the ditch, it's a shit fight.
It's much easier just
You're better off staying well out of the ditch.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, again, just like the 50s plus episode, just be a little bit slower, make better decisions with training, make slower decisions, play on the safe side a little bit, is really the best way to train whilst in a deficit. In my experience, it's just, you're better off just doing less. Which is really hard to do as an athlete. Especially, I'm sure you're the same. 5 weeks out-ish, give or take 2 weeks either side, you start going to yourself, I should really be doing more volume. Or you look back on your past preps that were completely different circumstances of recovery and you're a completely different person at that point, but it doesn't matter, right? And then you look back and you're like, I was doing 5 sets of squats last time and now I'm only doing 4 sets. What the fuck? I'm getting weak. I should do more sets. Or maybe you're doing, you're hitting bigger numbers earlier or whatever it is. But you're always going to compare yourself to your past self and to compare yourself to other people on Instagram and that. And you always get to that point where you're like, I should be doing more, or fuck, I should be doing less, or I should change this, or I should change that. And just really start questioning everything that you're doing way too much. And the answer is always just not to change shit because consistency is way more important than any one set of squats or that your E1RM is 10 kilos lighter at 7 weeks out or whatever it is. It really, really doesn't matter. But a deficit will drive that harder and will skew those a little bit more. So you have to really try not to do that and maintain your focus because you'll be fine on comp day if you manage fatigue, like I said. But So basically, like to wrap up all that a little bit before we move on a little more, there are multiple approaches to take to losing weight. I would base it on how much you have to lose and the timeline, and also like your mental experience with dieting as to which approach you've taken. I gave you a couple examples for myself there, but they both can work. It's just kind of like, what's the better one for you? Or if you're having clients, like look at all those things and make the decision, but they can absolutely both work. It's just a slightly different approach. And then the training needs to be matched to that nutrition and making sure you're playing on the safe side with fatigue, and that you're watching recovery a little bit more closely, and adjusting things, being willing to adjust things when necessary. And if you do all that, it's very manageable. You can still absolutely get stronger. You can still gain the skill over the prep that you need to perform 1RMs to the best of your ability on comp day. Sure, if you were willing to put on a little bit of muscle and were willing to eat a little bit more for recovery, you probably would have been a better day for you. So like, you think about that early. But if you're dead set on losing weight into a competition or losing weight whilst trying to gain strength, that's kind of the gist of it there.
I think just to jump in there, one of the benefits that you have, and obviously people will start to see that now across everyone's social platforms, but competition calendars are being announced much, much further in advance now, so it gives people the opportunity for that forward planning. If they know that they want to be in a particular weight class, they know it's a 2-hour or 24-hour weigh-in or whatever that may be, you can be planning for that sort of stuff right now. Like, perfect example, we had a call with Anthony this last week, and we have his over 12 months planned out. We know exactly what competitions, we have the dates lined up, we know exactly what weight class he's going to be in and what's going to be happening for that timeline, so we can manipulate his nutrition and basically and obviously his training to go alongside that for 12 months.
Yeah.
We know what we need to do when we need to be doing it. And unless there's...
Being very planned is really the crux of being an elite athlete, really. Like, if you could just say, like, one thing you can do better if you want to be at the top of any sport is just, like, plan ahead.
Forward planning.
Much more than you are now.
Don't be doing comps just randomly.
And know that shit changes, but
yeah,
have a plan.
I think we've seen a lot, like, people just randomly like, I want to do this comp and it's in 8 weeks' time, and then they're just like, oh, fuck, yeah. But now this other comp comes up and, I really want to do that one too, and all of a sudden it's like you've just thrown yourself.
And you do that for 5 years, and you're
a year?
Your comp in 5 years' time isn't, you're not at where you maybe could have been if you planned it out a little bit better. The last one that I want, if you're happy with that, Zach, yeah? You don't have anything to add?
I've got nothing else to really add on those fronts. Nothing else training-wise, nothing else protocol-wise.
The last one that I added in here that I wanted to talk about, partly because of the weekend, was training at significantly decreased in certain circumstances, or the weekend's case, significantly increased body weights.
Getting thick.
Yeah. So, I had somebody on the weekend who had put on, was it 10, 15 kilos, somewhere in there?
It was only about, it would have been 8 or 9 at the highest end. Definitely wasn't above 10.
Yeah, over the prep. That's still a significant amount of weight.
It would have been over 12 weeks.
Still.
Like, the body weight just fucking...
That's massive. Like,
yeah, it blew up.
So when you gain that much or lose that much, for the people who've gone the other way, it takes a little bit of time to get used to that body weight. Like, you're just different. You're just a different person. You're a different shape. You're going to move a little bit different. Your squat, your bench, deadlift technique might have to look a little bit different. I don't want to say better or worse, because it doesn't really matter. It's just like how you do things, the strategies your body takes to get things done. And so that's another advantage to getting ready early for these things, is that you can kind of get through the prep, not only from a recovery and a fatigue aspect of things, but like just consistency of technique and not having to adjust to body weight changes. It's just, I think it's understated to say, like, being there early really helps on that front. Like,
just giving yourself time to acclimate to how everything feels, because it does change. Like, if you've ever gone through a big weight loss phase, or you've substantially changed how your body looks, leverages are a bit different, weight distribution's different, There's a lot of things that come into account, especially when you have, there's now, little chipolata hands, and you have all these little extra bits and pieces. Then you put the heaviest thing you've ever tried to do on your spine. It's like, yes, this is different. What do I do?
Yeah, your body's used to moving in a certain way. You've trained it to move in a certain way, but now it's different. Now it's 10 kilos. It's a different shape. So
I think
you're going to have to get
mentioned like people are just trying to configure their new center of mass.
Yeah, that's going to change. There's tons of stuff. So it's your mobility is going to be different. Like you're going to get less or more arch maybe, and that's going to change how the positions you can get in comfortably.
My favorite thing was being able to bounce my stomach off my knees when I squatted.
Yeah,
I missed that. that helps a lot.
Yeah, definitely.
Not that you ever had a belly, like really.
No, but I folded over so much that it definitely
is just
helped.
how you squat,
when I was
though.
thicker at the midsection. Yeah, but when I'm a slender boy, I don't get as much bounce off it. When I was a thick boy,
more control. Yeah. I just wanted to mention that there's not really super relevant to the topic, but it's something to consider. Is if you are going to lose a lot of weight or gain a lot of weight, consider that it's going to take a little bit to get used to. So try to be at close to your body weight at. I'm going to say like 6 weeks out, which is typically
before you do the heaviest shit.
Yeah, I usually say
before you do the heaviest shit.
I usually say 6 to 8 weeks out. We just basically cruise at maintenance, maybe a little bit higher in maintenance, so that you're not experiencing
less variables.
Changes.
Yeah, less variables.
Your belly ain't in the way when you're deadlifting and all that sort of stuff.
And if you are within that 6 to 8 week period, and you're either not world class or not going to win any money, maybe just stop the cut and be at maintenance anyway and change weight classes.
Yeah. Have fun.
Yeah, exactly.
Just have fun.
Yep.
Cool. All right. I'm happy with that. Let's leave that one there. And
I'm going to try and figure out this fucking camera.
yeah, we'll be back here with more technology angry rants next week, no doubt.
I feel like maybe we should just go to the webcam. We haven't had any support from the listeners out there, podcast listeners. If anyone's IT savvy, please help.
I thought you were going to say, do you give a crap? Do you give a crap about seeing me in the highest quality?
See, Zach's
definitely
quality is all right with the webcam. Zach's quality is better than yours at the moment. Jesus, I don't know what's going on with this. I feel like we should just either upgrade the camera.
No,
definitely just buy a webcam.
We do have a webcam.
Definitely just buy
webcams.
Yeah. All right, we'll figure this out. But podcast listeners out there, give us a fucking hand, man. Seriously.
Nah, all good. All right, let's catch you later.
Red hot. Thank you for listening to Nexus Unloaded. Be sure to jump on our website to find details on everything mentioned on today's podcast, plus information on our coaching, mentoring, and gym services. Make sure to follow us on Instagram at NexusPerformance.Aus for any updates on what we are currently doing. See you all in the next episode.